This is The Mortals, where we strip down life to its rawest, most haunting moments, stories of survival, loss, and the mysteries that cling to us long after the danger passes. Of course, I'm Nathan Morris, your guide through the shadows of human experience, and I'm thrilled to have you. I really am. If you're new here, we dive into true tales that'll make your pulse race and your mind wander to places you didn't expect. And if you hadn't hit that follow button just yet for The Mortals, let's make it fun with a little challenge. Picture this. You're trapped in a crumbling, abandoned factory. The air is thick with dust, and the only way out is through a hidden exit. Your lifeline? Follow The Mortals right now. Hit that button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. I promise I'll guide you through the darkest corners of these stories directly. Don't get stuck in the rubble. Just follow us. Join the Mortals community at nathanmorrismusic.com for deeper dives and, of course, behind-the-scenes content. Let's get going. Because today we're doubling down on an episode we're going to call Double Edge of Survival, featuring two stories, near-death stories from opposite corners of the world. And these are true stories of people who stared into the abyss and somehow clawed their way back, though not without scars, of course, both physical and otherwise. We're going to journey to the heart of the Amazon rainforest, where a snake bite turns into a battle of body and spirit. And then we're going to go to the eerie silence of an abandoned factory in Ukraine, where a collapse becomes a test of endurance and sanity. So grab a blanket, dim the lights, pop up some popcorn, and brace yourself for a ride that's going to leave you questioning what it really means to survive and to be alive. Before we dive in, a quick reminder about the release schedule. New episodes of The Mortals drop every Tuesday and Thursday, so you got two chances each week to get your fix of the unexplainable. Mark your calendar, set a reminder, tie a string around your finger, whatever you have to do. Or you can stick a Post-it note on your fridge that says Tuesday and Thursday, Mortals. Or if you're tech savvy, just tell your smart speaker, remind me to listen to The Mortals every Tuesday and Thursday. Okay, I'll stop. I don't know why I continue on. This is ridiculous. I have so many more in my brain. I can't stop. Whatever works. I'm glad you're here. Don't miss out. Let's dive in. Let's dive into the first story. The Serpent's Grip. It's set in the dense, untamed Amazon rainforest in Brazil in 2019. And our focus is on Carlos Mendez. It's not his real name. I've chosen to change it, but we're going to use it to protect his identity. He's a 29-year-old indigenous guide from a small village near the Amazon River in the state of Amazonas. Carlos belongs to the Ticuna people, one of the largest indigenous groups in the region, and his life is woven into the fabric of the forest. He knows its secrets better than most. He knows where to find rare plants for medicine, how to read the river's shifting moods, and which creatures to give a wide berth. His village is a cluster of thatched roof huts perched on a muddy bank that relies on men like Carlos to navigate the jungle's labyrinthine trails, bringing back resources, guiding outsiders through a world that's as beautiful as it is deadly. But even the most seasoned guide can't predict when nature will turn on you with bared fangs. It was on a humid morning in March of 2019, the kind of day where the air feels like a wet blanket against your skin. Carlos set out with a very small group of 4 from his village to gather herbs deep in the jungle. The canopy above was a living ceiling, filtering sunlight into dappled patches that danced on the forest floor. And the air buzzed with the relentless drone of insects, punctuated by this guttural call over and over from howler monkeys echoing in the distance. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves hung heavy. It was a constant reminder of the cycle of life and death that defines this place. Carlos's task was pretty straightforward. Lead the group to a clearing about 5 miles from the village, a spot known for a rare vine used in healing salves, collect what they needed, and return by dusk. It was a route he'd walked dozens of times. Simple, really, a very familiar path etched into his memory like the lines on his calloused palms. But the Amazon doesn't play by human rules. It's a predator in its own right, always watching, always waiting for a misstep. And as they trekked through tangled undergrowth, Carlos took point, his machete slicing through vines and low-hanging branches with practiced ease. His eyes darted constantly, scanning for signs of danger, jaguar tracks pressed into the mud, the telltale shimmer of army ant swarms, or the subtle rustle of something larger lurking in the shadows. The group behind him chatted quietly in Takuna, their voices a soft hum against the jungle's cacophony. Carlos felt a quiet pride in leading them, in being the one they trusted to keep them safe. His younger cousin, Mateo, just 16 years old, eager to prove himself, trailed close behind, mimicking Carlos and his every move. "Stay sharp, Mateo," Carlos called over his shoulder. "The forest doesn't forgive mistakes." Mateo grinned, gripping his own small knife. "I'm learning from the best, aren't I?" Carlos chuckled back, but his focus never wavered. He couldn't afford to let his guard down. Not here. The group had been walking for nearly 2 hours, the clearing just another mile ahead, when disaster struck. With the speed of a striking cobra, as Carlos stepped over a fallen log, its bark slick with moss and rot, a sharp, searing pain exploded through his right calf. He stumbled forward, a grunt escaping his lips, and instinctively he looked down. 2 puncture wounds, small but deep, stared back at him, blood already trickling down his leg, staining the frayed hem of his cargo pants. His heart stopped for a split second as his gaze snapped to the ground nearby. Coiled in the leaf litter, blending so perfectly with the dappled shadows that he'd missed it entirely, was a bushmaster snake, known locally as surucucu, the longest venomous snake in the Americas and one of the deadliest. Its thick, mottled body, nearly 6 feet long, shimmered with a dull sheen, its triangular head poised as if daring him to move. Its eyes, cold and unblinking, locked with his for a fleeting moment before it slithered back into the underbrush, disappearing as silently as it had struck. Carlos knew exactly what this meant. A bushmaster's bite delivers a potent hemotoxin, a poison that destroys tissue, causes internal bleeding, and can lead to organ failure and death within hours if untreated. He'd seen it before. Men in his village, strong men, felled by such bites, their bodies swelling grotesquely, their breath fading to shallow gasps as families wept helplessly. Panic surged in his chest, a wild, clawing thing, but he forced it down with a deep, shuddering breath. He couldn't afford to lose control, not with his group depending on him. "Stay calm," he told them, his voice tight, betraying the fear that fought to hide. And he gestured to the spot where the snake had vanished. "We need to move. Now." The nearest help was back at the village, a 10-hour trek on a good day. Longer, with a wounded man slowing them down. Antivenom was a distant dream. The closest clinic with supplies was a 2-day boat ride downriver, assuming they even could get there or they even had it. Carlos's only hope was to reach his village and pray the shaman, an old woman named Iara, who'd tended to his people for decades, had enough traditional remedies to slow the venom's deadly march through his veins. Mateo, wide-eyed and trembling, stepped forward with a strip of cloth torn from his shirt. "We'll tie it off, right?" he stammered, hands shaking as he helped wrap a makeshift tourniquet just above the bite. Carlos nodded, though he knew it was a futile gesture. The tourniquet might delay the spread, but it wouldn't stop the poison. "We walk fast," he said, gritting his teeth against the pain already radiating up his leg. "No stopping." Every step sent waves of agony through his calf, each jolt a reminder of the venom seeping deeper into his system. Within an hour, nausea hit like a punch to the gut, bile rising in his throat as he fought to keep moving. Dizziness followed, the jungle tilting at odd angles, the canopy above began spinning like a kaleidoscope of green and shadow. His vision blurred at the edges, turning the faces of his companions into smudged shapes. "Carlos, you okay?" Mateo's voice began to cut through the haze laced with worry. Carlos forced a nod, wiping sweat from his brow with a trembling hand. "Keep going," he rasped, but inside a cold dread was taking root. Carlos knew the signs. He knew the clock was ticking. As the hours dragged on, Carlos's condition deteriorated with terrifying speed. His legs swelled, the skin stretching tight and turning an angry purple. The puncture wounds now oozing a sickly mix of blood and fluid. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes despite the cooling evening air that should have brought relief. His breath came in shallow, ragged bursts, each inhale a struggle as his body fought the poison's grip. They took turns supporting him, Mateo and another man, a burly hunter named Joe, slinging his arms over their shoulders to keep him upright. But progress was agonizing. The trail a muddy quagmire that sucked at their feet, every mile stretching into an eternity. Carlos's mind began to fray, thoughts fragmenting like shattered glass. He saw flashes of his life, his mother's weathered smile as she taught him to fish, his father's stern lessons on tracking, the first time he'd led a group through the jungle as a boy, chest puffed with pride. Was this how it ended? Not with a jaguar's claws or a river's current, but a silent strike in the leaves? Then came the hallucinations, or what he thought were hallucinations. Around the 5th hour, as dusk painted the canopy in eerie, blood-red shadows, Carlos heard a voice. It was deep, rhythmic, like a chant from the rituals of his childhood, coming not from his companions, but from the trees themselves. "Keep walking, son of the river," it said in the Takuna language, the words rolling like a drumbeat in his head. He froze mid-step, nearly collapsing as he scanned the foliage, his blurred vision searching for a source, but nothing, just endless green and shadow. His companions heard nothing either, their worried glances confirming he was alone in this. "Carlos, come on, we cannot stop," Joe continued to urge, tugging at his arm. Yet the voice returned, persistent, guiding Carlos with phrases his grandfather used to murmur during offerings to the forest spirits. "The forest breathes with you. Follow its pulse." Carlos could not shake the feeling that something or someone even was with him, an unseen presence pacing alongside. At one point, as they crossed a shallow stream, the water cold against his burning skin, he swore he saw a figure in the undergrowth. It was a man, tall, dressed in traditional Takuna garb, a woven loincloth, his chest and face painted with red in patterns Carlos recognized from old ceremony. The figure stood motionless, watching silently, his eyes dark pools of knowing before he vanished into the trees as if dissolving into mist. Carlos blinked hard, his heart pounding, but the vision, it was gone. "Did you see that?" Carlos croaked to his cousin Mateo, who only shook his head. Was his mind playing tricks, the venom warping reality into fevered dreams, or was it something more, an ancestor, maybe, reaching across the veil to pull him through? Whatever it was, it kept Carlos going, step by painful step, a lifeline of sound and shadow in the endless jungle night. After nearly 12 hours, as the first hints of midnight stars pierced the canopy, they stumbled into the village. Carlos, half conscious, his body a furnace of pain and fever. Women gasped, children scattered, and men rushed forward to carry him to the shaman's hut. The village healer, her face a map of wrinkles under a crown of gray hair, her gnarled hands applying crushed plants, bitter-smelling pastes of bark and vine while chanting prayers to counter the venom. Carlos was drifting in and out. His world was a haze of flickering firelight and murmured voices, the shaman's incantations blending with the ancestral chant still echoing in Carlos's mind. By dawn, Against all odds, the swelling began to subside, the purple hue of his leg fading to a bruised gray. He survives, but barely. And doctors, when he later visited the clinic for a checkup, were stunned. You should have died within 6 hours without that antivenom, one of the doctors said, shaking his head. This is a miracle. But Carlos knew it wasn't just medicine or luck. It was the shaman's knowledge, his own sheer will, and something else. Something that he couldn't name, but he felt it in his bones. The experience left Carlos changed in ways that went beyond the jagged scars on his calf. He still guides in the jungle, his machete a familiar weight in his hand, yes, but he speaks of the forest with this new reverence, a quiet awe that wasn't there before. He started participating more in Takuna rituals, seeking guidance from elders about the voice that he heard. And they told him it was likely an ancestor, a protector tied to his bloodline, drawn by his desperate need. The forest is alive with our past, one of the elders said, his voice gravelly with his age. They speak when we listen. Now, Carlos carries this small talisman, a carved wooden figure of a river spirit, on every trek, an offering of thanks to whatever guided him home. But he admits the experience haunts him. Every rustle in the jungle makes him pause, half expecting to hear that chant again, to see that painted face in the shadows. I'm not afraid of the forest, he told a local researcher in 2021, his eyes distant. But I know now, it's not just trees and animals. The ancestors walk with us. I heard them. I saw them. They wouldn't let me go. Before we move to our second story, I want to take a quick break for a tool that's been a lifesaver for me and the mortals. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, or if you're already creating content and want to up your game, you need to check out Descript. This is not just editing software, people. It's like having a full production team in your pocket. Descript offers automatic transcription, seamless audio editing, and even AI-powered voice cloning to make your episodes, your content sound polished and professional. Not to mention, your voice clone can speak Spanish, Japanese, Chinese. Click of a button. Their latest feature, AI avatars, lets you create video content without ever stepping in front of the camera. Really, just write the script and it looks like you're speaking. Perfect for storytellers who want to focus on the tale and not the tech. Give it a try for free at get.descript.com/mortals. I will link it in the description. Trust me, it's going to transform how you create. Let's shift gears to a totally different kind of survival in our second story. We're going to call this the Silent Factory, and it's set in the eerie confines of an abandoned Soviet-era industrial complex on the outskirts of Kyiv, Ukraine in 2017. Our focus here is Olena, not her real name. For privacy, of course, she's a 35-year-old urban explorer and photographer with a passion for capturing the forgotten. Olena was a graphic designer by day, her cubicle a gray cage of deadlines and fluorescent lights, she called it. But on weekends, she would escape into a world of decay and history. She spent her free time exploring derelict buildings, documenting the slow death of structures left behind after the Soviet Union's collapse. Her Instagram was this gallery of haunting images, rusted machinery frozen in time, peeling paint curling like dead skin, ghostly corridors where echoes lingered like ghosts. Each post was a story of a world left to rot, and her followers, a tight-knit community of fellow explorers and history buffs, lived for her captions, detailed accounts of the places she braved alone with just a camera and a flashlight. On a chilly October evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the Kyiv skyline in shades of bruised purple, Olena ventured solo into an abandoned factory once used to produce heavy machinery. The sprawling complex, it was a maze of concrete and steel on the city's industrial fringe, had been shuttered since the early 1990s, a casualty of economic collapse after the Soviet breakup. Its halls were silent except for the occasional drip of water from cracked pipes or the creak of settling metal, a building groaning under the weight of its own obsolescence. Of course, the graffiti marred its walls, jagged tags and crude drawings scrawled by vandals, while shattered windows gaped like empty eyes staring into the dusk. And armed with a flashlight, her trusty Nikon camera slung around her neck, and a small backpack of supplies, water, a granola bar, a first aid kit, she planned a quick 2-hour exploration to photograph the cavernous assembly rooms where massive lathes and presses still stood like skeletal giants. Just a short trip, she told herself, zipping up her jacket against the autumn chill, in and out before dark. But old buildings, they hold secrets and dangers buried in their bones. They keep them hidden. Alina entered through a gaping hole where a loading dock once stood, her boots crunching on broken glass that glittered like frost under her flashlight's beam. The air inside was stale, heavy, with this musty scent of mold and the sharp tang of rusted metal. Her footsteps echoed in the vast emptiness, each sound bouncing off the towering concrete walls, amplifying the sense of isolation. Shadows loomed large, cast by skeletal machinery and dangling chains that swayed slightly, as if moved by an unseen hand. Alina's heart quickened at this point, not from fear, but from the thrill of discovery. She snapped photos of a control panel, its buttons and dials coated in decades of dust, and a massive crane frozen mid-lift, its cables taut with forgotten purpose. "This place is a gold mine," she murmured to herself, her voice swallowed by the cavernous space. She imagined the caption she'd write later, "A tomb of industry where time stopped in 1991. She'd been exploring for about an hour at this point, venturing deeper into the factory's labyrinth layout, when she descended a rusted metal staircase to a basement level. The air grew colder here, dampness seeping into her bones, and the darkness, her flashlight struggling to pierce the gloom. The floor was littered with debris, shattered glass, twisted rebar, chunks of crumbling concrete, evidence of years of neglect. She stepped carefully, her camera clicking as she captured images of faded Soviet propaganda posters peeling from the walls, their red, gold slogans barely legible at this point. A faint smell, chemical and bitter, lingered in the air, a remnant of whatever this factory once produced. Alina wrinkled her nose but pressed on, drawn to a narrow corridor that promised more relics of the past. That's when disaster struck with a suddenness that stole her breath. As she navigated the dimly lit basement corridor, stepping over a pile of broken tiles, she felt the floor shift beneath her. A subtle, ominous groan of concrete and steel. Before she could react, before she could even scream, a section of the weakened floor gave way with a deafening crack, like a gunshot echoing through the empty halls. Alina plummeted downward, her body weightless for a split second before crashing into a sub-basement below. Debris rained down around her, chunks of concrete and jagged metal slamming into the ground with bone-jarring force. Pain exploded through her left leg and shoulder as heavy slabs pinned her in place, trapping her in this suffocating cage of rubble. Dust choked the air, a thick gray cloud that stung her eyes, her throat, and forced her into this fit of coughing that sent fresh waves of agony through her battered body. A sharp smell, like old chemical residue from the factory's past, clawed at her lungs, making each breath a struggle, all of this mixing into the air, every breath painful. She tries to move, to shift even an inch, but her leg was trapped beneath this slab. The pain was so intense it brought tears to her eyes. Her shoulder likely dislocated, rendering her left arm useless. Every single shift, every twitch sent waves of agony through her, and she bit her lip to keep from screaming, tasting blood. Her flashlight had rolled out of reach, its beam casting this weak, flickering glow across the jagged landscape of debris, leaving her in near total darkness. The only light was this faint sliver from a crack in the ceiling above, just a cruel reminder of how far that she had fallen, maybe 10 feet. Maybe more. Her phone, miraculously intact in her jacket pocket, showed no signal in the basement's depths, the bars mocking her with their absence. She was alone. She was injured. She was trapped in a space where no one would think to look for her. Panic clawed at her chest, a wild animal desperate to break free, but she forced herself to breathe, shallow and ragged. Someone will come, she whispered to herself, her voice trembling in the oppressive silence. But deep down, she knew the truth. Her friends wouldn't notice her absence for at least a day, maybe longer. She hadn't told anyone exactly where she was going, just an old factory near Kiev. How would they find her in this maze? Hours passed, each one stretching into this eternity of pain and suffocating darkness. The cold of the concrete seeped into her bones, her body shivering uncontrollably despite the adrenaline still coursing through her. The pain in her leg grew unbearable, a constant throbbing fire that made her vision swim with black spots. Her shoulder was a dull, persistent ache, her arm hanging limp and useless. The dust and chemical fumes made her dizzy and sick, and her thoughts sluggish, fragmenting into disjointed pieces. She saw flashes of her life at this point. Her first camera. It was a cheap point-and-shoot her father gave her at 12 years old. The abandoned school that she'd explored with friends as a teenager, laughing as they ran from imagined ghosts. The quiet pride of her latest gallery show where her photos of forgotten places had drawn a small but very passionate crowd. Was this how it ended? Not in a dramatic blaze, but in the silent and forgotten depths of a place that no one cared about anymore. She knew that she wasn't going to last long. Maybe it was blood loss from unseen injuries, or simply the exhaustion would claim her if help didn't arrive soon. Her eyelids, they grew heavy. The temptation to just close them and drift away became overwhelming. And that's when she heard it. A voice, not from above, not a rescuer's shout filtering through the rubble, but a small, childlike whisper echoing in the dark, cutting through the silence like a knife. Don't go to sleep, lady. Stay awake. Olena froze, her heart pounding so hard it hurt, her breath catching in her throat. She called out, her voice raw and cracked. Who's there? Please help me. But there was no answer, just the hollow echo of her own plea bouncing off the concrete walls. She told herself it was her mind, a desperate hallucination born of this pain, of this fear. But the whisper returned, clearer this time, tinged with an urgency that sent a shiver down her spine. They're coming. Don't give up. And then, in the dimmest corner of her vision, where the faint beam of her lost flashlight barely reached, she thought she saw something, a small figure. A child in tattered clothes standing just beyond the debris. The figure's face was obscured by shadow, but its posture was still, almost unnaturally so, as if watching her with silent intent. Olena blinked hard, tears and dust blurring her sight, and the figure was gone, leaving only the jagged outline of broken concrete. Her breath hitched, and a sob escaped her lips. I'm losing it, she muttered, her voice barely a whisper. But the voice came again, soft yet insistent, every few minutes, pulling her back from this edge of unconsciousness. Stay awake. They're close. At one point, in the deepest hour of the night, she swore she felt a small hand on her shoulder, a fleeting touch of cold that made her gasp and jerk, though nothing was there when she turned her head. The experience was terrifying, but it kept her fighting, kept her eyes open, even as her body was screaming to shut them. Before we dive deeper into Olena's harrowing night and the mystery of that voice, let's pause for another tool that's been a game changer for me and the mortals. And if you are a content creator, writer, maybe you're going to school soon, or someone with big ideas, you have to check out Poppy AI. This isn't just another AI tool. This is like having a brainstorming partner who never sleeps, really. Poppy AI helps me generate ideas for these episodes, draft scripts, and even refine story hooks to keep you on the edge of your seats. Whether you're crafting a podcast, writing a novel, or working on something for school, maybe building a social media presence, Poppy AI is able to streamline your workflow, turning rough concepts into polished content in just minutes. It's very intuitive. It's powerful. It's honestly a bit addicting, but More than anything, I want you to know you can try it out for free at the link in the description. The link's right there for you. Trust me, it's going to spark ideas that you didn't even know you had. Poppy AI, link in the description. Give it a try for free right now. Olena, trapped in the bowels of this abandoned factory, her body broken and her mind teetering on the edge of despair. The child's voice came and went over the next several hours, always with the same message. Stay awake. They're coming. Each time, it always seemed to pull her back from this brink. A lifeline, really, of sound in this suffocating darkness, though she couldn't tell if it was real or a hallucination born of trauma she was experiencing. Her body was failing, her leg a throbbing inferno of pain. Her shoulder is a constant ache. Her lungs are burning, and every breath is getting more difficult. The chemical fumes grew thicker, or perhaps that was her imagination. Bitter tastes were coating her tongue as this dizziness just continuously perpetuated and threatened to pull her under. But the voice never let her go. It was a tether. It was this stubborn reminder to just keep going, even when her strength was nothing but this tiny flicker. After 18 grueling hours, as dawn breaks outside and paints the world above in this pale gray light, a faint shout finally pierced the silence. It was distant at first, muffled by layers of concrete, but it grew louder and louder and more desperate. Olena, are you here? Her heart leapt, a surge of hope cutting through the fog of pain. It was a friend, worried after Olena didn't return her calls or texts, had organized the search with a small group of local urban explorers. They'd traced her last known location to the factory, piecing together vague mentions of her plans from social media posts. And after hours of combing the sprawling complex, they heard her weak cries from the basement. Down here, she screamed. Her voice is raw and breaking, tears streaming down her dust-caked face. Rescuers worked frantically to clear the debris, shouts of encouragement, a lifeline, as they dug through the rubble with bare hands and improvised tools. They pulled her free just as she was slipping into unconsciousness, her vision darkening at the edges, the child's voice whispering one last time, and it was so faint that she almost missed it. You're safe now. At the hospital, doctors were stunned by her condition: a fractured femur, dislocated shoulder, severe dehydration, and minor cuts and bruises, but no internal bleeding. No permanent lung damage from the fumes despite the prolonged exposure. You shouldn't have lasted half that time down there, the physician told her bluntly, his brow furrowed as he reviewed her chart. Horrible bedside manner. The dust alone should have overwhelmed your system, he said. Olena just nodded. Her mind was elsewhere, replaying that kid's voice, the fleeting touch on her shoulder. Who was that? Who kept her awake? Was it her own stubborn will manifesting in this hallucination, or someone else? Who could it have been that's tied to the factory's forgotten past? In the weeks that followed, as Olena recovered in this sterile hospital room with a view of Kiev's gray skyline, she couldn't shake the experience. Her injuries sidelined her from urban exploration for months. A broken leg and dislocated shoulder, they don't heal overnight, but this real scar was psychological for her. Nightmares of collapsing floors and suffocating darkness plagued her sleep, often accompanied by this child's voice, soft but insistent, echoing in the void. She sought therapy, where a psychologist suggested the voice was a projection of her survival instinct, a way to keep herself alert under extreme stress. Your mind created a savior, the therapist said, her tone clinical. Olena nodded during those sessions, but privately she was not convinced by that. The specificity of the words, the fleeting glimpse of a figure, it felt too real, too distinct to be just her imagination. She confided in her friend, the one who organized the search team, the friend who led it, over coffee one day in a quiet cafe, and this was months later. She told her friend, I heard something down there. She admitted, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup, her voice low. Nervously, she shared this. A child telling me to stay awake. I saw her, I think. Now, our friend is a pragmatic man with a penchant for debunking ghost stories, frowned but didn't dismiss her. You were hurt, Olena. Your mind plays tricks, but if it kept you alive, does it even matter? He paused, then added, there's a medium I know, if you want to dig deeper. She's helped explorers before, and against her better judgment, Olena agrees to go. The medium, a wiry woman with sharp eyes, conducted a session in Olena's apartment, burning sage and murmuring in a language Olena did not recognize. Afterward, she claimed a young spirit was tied to the factory, a girl who died in a tragedy, perhaps a fire or accident in the 1980s, and lingered to help those in danger. She chose you, the medium said. Her gaze is piercing. Olena didn't fully buy it, but she keeps a small candle lit on her desk now, a quiet gesture to whoever spoke to her that night. Olena also researched the factory's history, digging through old Soviet records and local archives with this determination bordering on obsession. She discovered it had been a site of tragedy in the 1980s. A fire had killed several workers during a night shift, including a young girl whose family had lived on site in makeshift housing. The girl, named Anya, according to reports, was just 8 years old, caught in the blaze while her father worked. Was that who she'd heard? A lingering spirit, trapped in the factory's ruins, reaching out to save another life? Or was it her own mind conjuring a savior from fragments of history that she'd read years ago? Olena doesn't know. She's returned to urban exploration, her camera once again a shield against the mundane, but she does avoid this factory. She knows that something's still there. She told a fellow explorer friend in 2019, her voice firm and sharing. She said she doesn't want to hear it again. Let's reflect on these two stories for just a moment. Carlos and Olena, there's a lot of parallels. Both faced death in wildly different worlds, one in the untamed jungle, the other in a man-made jungle of ruin, but both encountered something unexplainable in their fight to survive. A voice from the forest, a whisper in the dark. Science, they call it trauma-induced hallucination. You heard it in both stories, a coping mechanism of the brain under stress. But when you hear their accounts, the certainty in their tones, the way they still grapple with what they experienced, it makes you wonder. Was there something more at play, something beyond the physical? A guardian spirit, an echo of the past, or just the raw power of human will manifesting as sound and vision? I don't have the answer, and maybe we never will. But these stories, they remind us that survival isn't always just about the body making it through. Sometimes it's about the mind or something deeper, holding on when everything else fails. I want to go deeper into the broader context of their survivals. For Carlos, the Amazon rainforest isn't just a backdrop. It's a living entity, both provider and predator. Bushmaster bites are rare, but devastating. I did research. Mortality rate of 80% without immediate medical intervention. The fact that he survived 12 hours of trekking with venom in his system, aided only by traditional remedies, that's a testament to both his resilience and the knowledge of his community. But it's also a reminder of the isolation many indigenous groups face. Access to modern healthcare, days away, forcing reliance on ancestral wisdom. And Carlos's story isn't just about surviving a snake. No, it's about surviving a system that leaves entire populations vulnerable, where a single bite can mean the difference between life and a quiet, unnoticed death. I hope you are grateful for where you live and what you have access to. And Olena's ordeal, meanwhile, shines a light on the dangers of urban exploration. Obviously, don't push that button. Don't go in there. Probably should read the signs, maybe. But her hobby, it's grown in popularity with social media, but it really does have risks. Abandoned buildings, especially Soviet-era structures, are structurally unsound, filled with hazards like asbestos, chemical residues, unstable floors. Olena was lucky. Her friends, they acted quickly. They were smart. They became these detectives. But a lot of people who explore aren't. Her story also touches on the historical weight of these places. That factory wasn't just a ruin, it was a tomb of forgotten lives, a relic of a collapsed empire. The child's voice, whether it was real or imagined, whether you believe it happened or not, it ties her survival to that past. A very haunting reminder that history doesn't always stay buried. It's a cautionary tale, not just of physical danger, but of the emotional and psychological toll of stepping into spaces where tragedy lingers. I want to end with a thought that's lingered since I first pieced these stories together. Survival isn't a straight line from danger to safety. It's this jagged path marked by moments that we can't explain and forces that we can't see. And Carlos and Alina, they didn't just beat the odds, they beat something even deeper, something that reached out to them when all seemed lost. These stories are intriguing. Whether you believe in spirits, ancestors, or the sheer grit of the human mind, their stories, they show us that we're never truly alone, even in our darkest hours. Maybe that's the real takeaway. When death comes close, something, be it within us or beyond, whispers back. If you've got a story of survival, of the unexplainable, or just something that you need to get off of your chest, I would love for you to join the Mortals community. It's a space for deeper conversations, behind-the-scenes content, first looks, first listens, and a chance to connect with others who feel the weight of life's mystery. Check it out. The link is in the description, or visit nathanmorrismusic.com. Become a member. Your support will help support this podcast and what it is that I do, able to show up to create content. Obviously, also check out the merch. I must say, your story might be the one we tell next. Until then, take care of yourselves. You're loved far more than you could ever know. I'm not done yet. New episodes do drop every Tuesday and Thursday. I want to remind you, set a reminder, mark your calendar, don't miss out. Try sticking a note on your mirror that says, Tuesday and Thursday, Mortals with Nathan, heart. Or just set a spooky alarm on your phone to keep you on track. Don't forget to check out that merch. Tag me on all the socials. I'm Nathan, and I'll see you next time with another story that'll probably make you question everything. Stay safe out there.